Hey everybody, Clifford here, and today I'm doing another carrot video. Doing another carrot video. Um, so let's get into it, shall we? Okay, so the basic premise of this video that I'm going to go over is sort of a general discussion, or sort of like a what if, or sort of like sort of coming up with how things are going to turn out with Carrot going back to Zoe, becoming the ruler of Zoe. Um, Now, before I necessarily get into this, there's something I want to point out first. For a long time, I've been a big fan of Carrie becoming a member of the Charlotte crew. I've always given my support of it. I've always given like my general thoughts, like why I think this could work, and all that kind of stuff. Now, this is not me necessarily going back on my words and changing my opinion and believing that Carrie um, is not worthy of becoming a strike member. I still believe that even to this day. But I've also stated before that I've also learned to accept that if Oda chooses not to let have Carrot become a member of the Strike crew, I've come to accept that. All right, Oda's telling a story and he's telling it the way he wants to be told. And if this is the route he chooses, then this is the route that I gotta accept. Okay, but this does not change the fact that I still support Carrot becoming a Strike crew member. So the overall idea of this video is basically sort of like going over like a general discussion, like how things are going to turn out for Carrot going back to Zoe, and that's generally what this video is going to be about. Now, a lot of people will sort of bring this up in that it doesn't necessarily make sense for Carrot becoming the leader of Zoe. Now, that doesn't necessarily. That's not to be rude in saying that Carrot can become a great leader. It's just right now how things are with her character. It feels like she's not ready for that moment, and to be honest, that seems like it's the truth. Now, now necessarily like why Oda is choosing to go with Carrot in this direction, we're not really sure. I mean, we'll have to wait until we actually see Carrot back on Zoe and actually see how things are going to turn out with her leading Zoe necessarily to really understand like how Oda is going to set this up. Now, in my last video I made with Carrot, I talked about how 2023 will be the year of Carrot, and the whole basic of that video was me started going over some general ideas like when we might see Carrot again or like how things could turn out. And if you're not familiar with it, 2023, like in the Chinese zodiac, 2023 will be the year of the rabbit. Okay, and the reason I stated that is that since 2023 will be the year of the rabbit, I feel like it would be still a great opportunity to have the best rabbit girl in One Piece appear in the year of the rabbit. Now, does that necessarily give 100% guarantee that that's actually going to happen? No, but I'm hoping it will. So I'm praying real hard for that moment. All right. So yeah, so Carrot was basically chosen to be the leader of Zoe. Okay. Now, at first, Carrot was very grateful for the news. She was very excited, but once she realized what that means and what that is going to lead to, she sort of like turned down the offer, saying like, "I'm not ready for this. Like, there has to be others more suitable." And even in the end, it's true because when you look at that, it doesn't make sense. Like Carrot, this doesn't make sense for Carrot to become the leader of Zoe. Oh, but they still like, especially Wanda, like she gives her supportive nature, saying that they made the right choice. They made the right choice, and they've also sort of give Carrot a nod to Pedro by saying you carried the will of Pedro. Now, Pedro's necessary will or dream was not to necessarily lead and become its leader. Okay, he wanted to go out there and adventure, especially back when he was a child with the Roger Pirates and sail with them to Laptail, but he never got his choice because Roger told him that he was too young for this adventure. And what I can see from this necessarily is a great moment where in that last panel that we saw with Carrot, she does think of Pedro, so she's remembering Pedro in that moment, and maybe in Carrot's mind she's thinking like, if Pedro believes in me, then maybe I can believe in myself. So keep in mind that the way this necessarily works is that yes, Pedro's dream was not necessarily to like go out there and become the leader of Zoe. He wanted to go out there and adventure. He wanted to explore the world and learn new things. Okay. And the way that Carrot sees this as an opportunity is that her thinking of Pedro is more in the sense like, okay, if Pedro believes in me, then maybe I should believe in myself. Okay. And you gotta think about that. Like we know Carrot knows necessarily that Pedro used to be a member of the used to be like a pirate or like was branded as a pirate and just going on adventure. We know Carrot knows about that, but it also comes down to like how much Carrot actually knows in full detail. So maybe there's some things that she doesn't quite realize or understand about that. All right, so Carrot going back to Zoe, the way I can see this going is that I feel like the best way that Oda's going to do this is for a cover story. Okay, I feel like a cover story is going to be the best place. Now, it might be more interesting if Oda could do it within like the actual chapter itself. But be honest, I feel like a cover story is going to be the correct answer to go. So I feel like the next time we see Carrot is going to be in a cover story. The same thing might happen with Yamato, because and that would actually be a great idea. That could actually be very interesting. Imagine if we get both the cover story with Carrot and Yamato. Yamato, a cover story can be her traveling around Wano, much in a similar vein to Odin, and then Carrot can go back to Zoe, becoming the leader of Zoe for a while. And then maybe something in those storylines can set up a good reason for why they need to come back into the main plot of the story. I'll do Yamato's on a separate video, but now I'll just focus on Carrot for this instance. Alright, so Carrot coming back to Zoe becoming the leader necessarily. Now, in my general thoughts, I feel like it would have made more sense for Carrot becoming the leader of Zoe if she would have actually wanted to fight against Sparrow rather than lost it. But as I said, Otis telling his story, we'll have to just accept we'll just have to accept how he's choosing to do this. Alright, so now I should explain necessarily what Carrot's ruling over. So Carrot is becoming the leader of the Mokomo Dukedom Kingdom, which resides on the back of an elephant named Zunisha, and the elephant itself is referred to as Zoe. Now, Zoe is not an ordinary island that you can just sail to. Okay, it's basically It's basically on the top of a giant elephant named Zunisha that travels basically within the New World. That travels around. Okay. And because it's not like an ordinary island, you can't sail to it with a log post, okay? The only way to necessarily get to this island is to have a Beaver card in order to find it, okay? That's how Jack actually came to the island before, because he had a Beaver card, thanks to the trader who turned out to be Condro, okay? Now, the reason why I bring this up, that this is very interesting because Oda has done very unique things in the storyline where he's brought small details from certain panels or chapters that were just completely said and brought back into the storyline that you didn't think that was going to be relevant or could be possible. Okay, now what I'm basically referring to here is that when the whole idea of a trader was first brought up and it was started giving speculation, there was a moment where Inuarashi stated that he had hoped that the Beaver card was lost to the sea. Okay, so after Jack had returned and they were basically bombing at Zunisha, Zunisha asked Momo to give him an order to basically attack Jack and his his fleet of army and stuff like that. It's his fleet of armada. Okay. And basically, in that moment, when the whole crashing went down, they had hoped that the Beaver card that they had was lost to the sea. Okay. Now, this is the very interesting thing to point out is that the fact that you need a Beaver card to necessarily get it. Okay. Now, that's not necessarily 100% accurate. Okay. Now, it's true having a Beaver card would be the easiest way to do it. Okay. Hey, but Zunisha is not necessarily a fast elephant that's running real fast, super fast, or it's not an invisible elephant. Okay, it's basically an elephant that's just traveling around the New World, just basically walking around instantly for 1,000 years for a crime that he had committed. So necessarily, it wouldn't be necessarily impossible for some random boat to stumble upon it necessarily, even if they weren't looking for it. All right, it would just be a mere coincidence that it just happened to happen. Okay. Now you're probably wondering, what's the exact point of this? What exactly are you going to go over? Well, going over necessarily, in that if Oda is going to give us a cover story with Carrot as the leader of Zoe, the way I can see this working is that maybe it'll start up with the Minks returning, and then there might be some rebuilding, some remodeling, trying to get their homes back together, trying to recuperate any damage that was given by Jack. So I feel like that could be the first start of it, okay? And then it'll eventually lead into something where the Minks are attacked. Okay, now this is very interesting because I feel like in most cases, if it's minor things to say maybe there's a commotion between the Minks, some disagreement or some kind of argument, I feel like Carrot can handle that. Okay, if there's maybe some kind of epic storm or some kind of massive damage to a structure, I feel like Carrot can handle that. But it really comes down to it when a new threat arises and then comes to Zoe and faces the challenge where Carrot must stand up and become the protector of Zoe and protect the citizens, her citizens, okay? Now, because Zoe is an almost impossible place to necessarily get to, you'd have to be extremely lucky or have a Viva card in order to actually get there. Here, so, and there doesn't seem much instances where probably like a lot of threats that actually come to Zoe on a regular basis. Okay. However, there is one character I feel like could have like a potential or maybe a possible possibility to actually wind up in Zoe necessarily. And keep in mind, even the world government is familiar even the world government is familiar with the elephant Zunisha itself. Okay, it was even stated in a panel against the one of the Marines that were giving information back to the Gorosei about what had happened. They basically stated that that the giant elephant was nowhere in sight, that it basically disappeared, that they could not find it. So the world government, and especially the Gorosei, are very familiar with the giant elephant Zunisha. However, and now, and keep in mind, Zunisha has like a lot of forest surroundings it and stuff like that. So it's on the back of a giant elephant, and with a lot of forest structures around it and everything. And the fact that we got introduced to Greenbull and Wano, yeah, I'm sure everybody's starting to get getting a general idea where I'm going to go with this. And when we first get introduced to Greenbull, well, not talking about like this silhouette one. I'm talking about the one where we're first getting introduced to him necessarily in a proper way. Remember that Greenbull was like flying through the sky with like a giant flower thing, and the fact that Oda basically told us and sort of gave us details like how his fruit works, and like it being the fourth force fruit, him being a Logia type, and necessarily the Minks. The Minks are going to be in a terrible situation if Greenbull happens to be flying around and he comes across the elephant Zunisha and ends up going down and see what it is, and like if he's very familiar with the reports of like there being a giant elephant and decides to go down there and see what happens, the Minks are going to be in a terrible situation if they go up against Greenbull. Well, even like the 9 scabbards, well, not 9 of them necessarily, but like the Momo retainers, the Oda retainers, like them going out to try and defend Wano and trying to protect Luffy from because Greenbull was there to capture Luffy, and they were there to basically try and defend him, so Greenbull would not stand in the way. And the only one who was really able to put up a fight against Greenbull out of all of them was Yamato, because she was the only one who was very familiar with using Haki. And it wasn't until not Odin, but it wasn't until Shanks came by that he allowed his Haki power that basically made Greenbull change tactics and choose to run away to fight another day. And what I can see by this is that, and keep in mind, because like how Oda gave that scenario, and the fact that it's a giant forest surrounding and where nowhere really to go, the Minks are going to be necessarily screwed as hell. Truth be told, that's for any place necessarily, because most of One Piece is a giant island everywhere you look at it. Like, it's the giant island no matter how you look at it, and surrounded by water. So in most cases, no matter where you're at with Greenbull, there's really nowhere to go. So yeah, what I can necessarily see is that Greenbull could be a great candidate or a great reason to sort of dive into more of a conflicting challenge for Carrot becoming the leader of Zoe. Oh, and maybe in that moment to where something could end up happening to where the Minks are captured, or maybe something even more devastating happens with the Minks, and maybe in that moment Carrot will have to try to escape. How she'll escape, it's hard to say. Like, if that's the case, and that's how Oda's going to choose to do it, and I really hope that Carrot could escape, and maybe in that moment Carrot will return with the Straw Hats, and then maybe she'll go on an adventure, or maybe try and find a way to be able to save them. Now we're in the final game. We're basically in the end game now of the One Piece saga, so it's hard to necessarily say if Oda's going to necessarily do that. And we do know that Oda made some touch ups when we had that 1 month break. So it could be possible that maybe originally Oda was planning on having Carrot Yamato join the crew beforehand, but he decided to change his mind on that and decided, you know what, I really need to get the story done, and I'm just gonna be adding too much with if I keep adding these characters. So maybe Oda is gonna stick with the whole 10 characters, and maybe necessarily because he wants to get Vivi back into the story, he's probably gonna stick to Vivi as being the 10th member. I would really hope to necessarily believe that Yamato and Carrot will come back and become members of the Strike crew. But it's really hard to say at this point. It's really up in the air. So I can see that as being a good possibility that what Oda's gonna necessarily do is that the next time we see Carrot is going to be in a cover story, and in that cover story it's going to be like, you know, sort of like giving small details or small reasons, like showing like how Carrot can become a great leader, maybe a few challenges, but then maybe a good way to sort of like end it in a very dramatic way is if they ran into a new threat, and you know this threat could be in a possible situation to where someone arrives by a mere coincidence, or maybe they have a viewer card that allows them to get to Zoe. No. Um, so yeah, so it, it's very hard. It's hard to really necessarily give an exact opinion, but overall, this isn't me necessarily sort of giving a doubt by saying Carrie can't become a Strike crew member. I want Carrie to become a Strike crew member, and I still believe in the fact that she deserves to be one. But this is also me sort of like giving like a general idea or a simple discussion of like how things are going to turn out for Carrot becoming the leader of Zoe, and trying to think of a good idea of like how Oda is going to choose to go in that direction. And, and be honest, like I would hope necessarily, because I think it would be a very good interesting part of the story if the Minks ran into another threat that faced a bit of a challenge to him, and then maybe in that moment, maybe that's when Carrie can realize something even better, because now if that's the case, then I feel like Carrot needs to lose that fight. Okay, that's one fight that does not make sense, because like, you know, if Carrot lost the fight against Sparrow, but yet she won the fight against Greenbull, you'd have to stop. Like many people out there would be thinking like, okay, I'm completely confused. All right, she loses the fight against Sparrow, but she wins the fight against Greenbull. That literally makes no sense. So that's one fight that she's got to lose. Um. So yeah. So there's not much to go over in this video. Not overall, I'm just basically sort of giving a simple discussion like how things are going to turn out. So yeah. So that's all I got for this Carrot video. Maybe there's more I can talk about, more I can say, but I just wanted to basically just sort of like talk about like how Carrot is going to do as becoming the leader of Zoe, and you know, that's not to be rude. All right, Carrot can obviously become a great leader if Oda chooses to write it that way. Okay, everything that is being done is being written by the way Oda is choosing to go by. Okay, so even if we don't necessarily see it, Oda can make it possible if he writes it in the greatest way possible. So yeah, so that'll be it for this Carrot video. Hey, if you did enjoy the video and you liked anything I say, please let me know by smashing that like button, okay? Feel free to subscribe to the channel and hit notification bells, okay? So yeah, so that'll be it for this video. Thank you so much for joining me, and here's Carrot to end off the day. So have a great day, everybody. Bye-bye.